to strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Matrix, and Whisperer.
Yes, g'day guys, and welcome back to the Insight NRL Show. I'm the Supercoach Brain, and I'm on deck to answer all the Insight Unlimited questions ahead of a very big round 3 of NRL Supercoach. Obviously, the show is brought to you by Insight Unlimited by Insight Fantasy Sports. So if you want to become an Insight Unlimited member, maybe you want to get your questions answered on this podcast, or maybe you want an extra little bit of an edge over your competition. Maybe you want to beat your mates in your leagues this year, or maybe you want to climb the rankings into maybe the top 1,000 or even have a crack at the top 100 this year. You can join Insight Unlimited for $25. Only cost you that for the full year as well, not just the season. We obviously cover all 4 major Supercoach sports, NRL, AFL, NBL, and BBL. And you'll get access to all of our expert insights in the Discord, exclusive to you. So $25 to become an Insight Unlimited member and get your answers on here on the podcast every week. So let's dive into those. That's why we're here. So for those of you watching on YouTube, we're going to pop these questions up on the screen. For anybody listening on audio, I'm still going to obviously do my best to explain them as I go. First, we have Pitbull. Are we okay to play fullback and halfback roulette, or are we picking and sticking our guns? And this has been an interesting question, I guess, and something that we've looked at a fair bit through the preseason. We've looked a lot at scheduling. We've looked a lot, or a fair amount of depth into the draw for each team and who has the favourable draw. And I guess my answer to this one is yes. In terms of fullback roulette, I think rotate, or what we call rotating our fullbacks based on matchup is advantageous. Playing halfback roulette, though, the issue with this is that there aren't really many kind of top tier halfback options throughout this year. And Nico and Cleary are by far and away heads above the rest, and then you've got guys like Moses, Jerome Hughes, Daly Cherry Evans, Sean Johnson. Those guys, I personally believe are in the second tier, and I don't know whether I want to be mucking around with my halfback too much this year. I would much rather just pick and stick my guns in halfback, and then I would rotate my fullbacks because there are so many more viable fullback options. And we'll talk about that. There's a couple of questions that come up tonight on what to do with Kalen Ponga. So yeah, there are a couple of tactics and some things I'll explain today that are probably going to give a bit of insight into the way I'm going to approach fullback this year. So that's the first one. Pitbull also has another question around Josh Curran. Is his break even too good to ignore, or do we pass it up for now and wait for more confirmation and see his role with the team at full strength? And I guess that is the big question, isn't it? We've seen 2 games in a row now. We call it the Jermaine Hopgood effect, where Curran has fallen into extra minutes due to injury. And this happened a lot with Hopgood last year. Every single time we thought he was going to be out of the not out of the team, but on the bench, someone got injured. Matto got injured. Junior Bolo got injured. Riga Campbell-Gillard got injured. There was a lot going on. Sean Lane went down for the season. So it mucked up their rotation a lot. And what we're seeing with Josh Curran, obviously, is exactly that. So I still think that he is a good buy this week. I think he is a buy. The negative break even for one is definitely a big calling card for me. I started with Josh Curran, luckily, so it's not a conversation for me. But if you didn't have Josh Curran in your team, I think we can probably lean on the fact that he is the best middle forward in this team. And Max King hasn't exactly started the way that we'd want him to. He's been pretty rock solid, but Farmasili's out this week. We're seeing Liam Knight come into this rotation this week, and as great as he was in Cup last week, I don't think we're going to see what we saw in Cup for Liam Knight, and we're probably not going to see the minutes there for Liam Knight either. So Curran's going to have to probably pull his weight a fair bit again this week. I think we're just going to see a lot of this 50-plus minutes moving forward for Josh Curran. He's the most reliable. I think Seraldo's shown his hand at the Bulldogs to kind of lean on Josh Curran and use him in as many different capacities as possible. He can play on an edge as well, which plays into his advantage. We're hopefully going to see the front row forward duel come in round 6 for him. Hint, hint, Tom Sangster. So I think Josh Curran's a good buy this week. I don't necessarily need to see much more. We've seen a lot of it over the past few seasons for Josh Curran. I think he's a pretty good shout. The next one, we've got Aiden 12. Thoughts on bringing in Joey Lussick? He goes up significantly in price next week and would be handy to have on the bench over Levi. Question about, I guess, this is an easy one to answer. I think the answer is yes. I'm doing this pretty much this exact move. I'm doing Levi to Lussick this week. A lot of us have Levi on the bench, and the issue with Levi over the last 2 weeks is he scored a try and barely cracked 40. And my concern is that when he doesn't get that try, inevitably, it's going to be maybe the fucking Wade Egan of last year. But if he doesn't get a try, he's going to score you 22 points at best. And the base just isn't there. He's not the guy we thought he was. And obviously we know that Joey Lussick's had attacking stats as well, but the first game he didn't score a try. He did score a try last week, but in the first game he got a try assist, I think, and a couple of try contributions and a lie break assist and things like that. But Eels, I still call Eels the better team over Canberra. They've started well, but I think Joey Lussick is a great shout. Minus 50 odd break even this week is way too hard to ignore. Even though Levi has a negative break even as well, I think even if Levi comes out and gets 20, if Lussick comes out and gets 60 this week, you're looking at a 100k price rise. And Danny Levi will probably barely get 30k. So there is a fairly big swing there. I know you have to pay up to get to Lussick, which isn't ideal. But he can be a viable hooker 2 option. If you do have Harry Grant, for instance, and he's on the bye next week and you want to hold him, stay tuned for questions on Harry Grant. But Lussick, I think, is a really good option and the number one buy for this week. My name is DVG, the winner of NBL Supercoach last year, and currently leading the World Cup in the NRL segments. So plenty of good insight for Dave. Any insight during the Warriors game regarding SJ not goal kicking? Would Metcalf take the kicking permanently? Nothing's really come out. I mean, normally NRL physio's all over this stuff, so I haven't heard anything from him per se, but we can naturally assume that SJ would be the better goal kicker. He's done it his whole career. I mean, look, I might be wrong on this. I'm not 100% sure. But I would say that there is some form of niggle. SJ has had multiple quad issues over the last couple of years. And it's been very heavily documented that his lower limb issues are definitely the crux, I guess, of the Achilles heel for him. So I would assume he's nursing a niggle that is just not being publicised, and Metcalf's taking the kicking for the short term before SJ's good to go again. This could honestly, I mean, there's a small percentage that this could be just SJ taking a step back and reducing his workload somewhat, or reducing his risk to injury, and just handing the goal kicking over to the next guy in line. So I can't answer this with any sort of certainty, but I would probably lean into the fact that it might be a niggle as opposed to him passing the torch, so to speak. Agent Cheese is asking, could we do Lukey to Cotter or Olakauatu and set and forget them? Then get Fainu, Samuela Fainu, I'm assuming he's saying, or Finafuiaki for the cash, and then target Walsh in round 6. It's a bit of a loaded question, this one, but I think let's start with the Lukey to Cotter or Olakauatu. I think, do we want Cotter in the 2RF? No. For me, I want guys with try scoring upside in my 2RF. So I think for me, Cotter has to be in the front row if you're going to buy him. So if you have the dual and that works, absolutely. But my pick is Olakauatu. Hamoli has come out like a man possessed this year. He has been on fire. So for me, and Manly have a really nice draw as well. We've been talking about them a fair bit. In the first 2 rounds especially, they come out firing. So Hamoli Olakauatu on the right edge there out on DCE's hip. They've shown their hand by using him a lot in the first couple of games here and even into the trials. He was very unlucky last week not to go over for a try that got disallowed as well. So that 57, I think it was last week, could have easily turned into 80 for Hamoli. He is a great option and someone, yes, he's 699k, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this from him this year. So I really like Olakauatu if you're going to trade Lukey and you've got the cash in the bank. Then get Fainu or Finafuiaki for the cash. Look, my pick, we can wait on Samuela Fainu another week. He looked fantastic last week. We just need to see if the minutes are still going to be there for him. 58 minutes is massive. I'm not 100% sure whether we see that again this week, but you get a free watch because his price doesn't rise. Tigers buy round 1. his price won't rise until next week. So you can have another look. Finifuyaki, I mean, we can also have a look at him too. I don't know whether we need to jump on him straight away unless it is a really important cash grab for you in the 2RF. He is a good option, don't get me wrong, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play 60 minutes on an edge this week. He played the rest of the minutes for Lukey when he went down last week. So the only issue is Jack Koszewski on the bench. So that's the question mark there, and he might steal some edge minutes from someone, and it won't be Nanai. So have another look at Finifuyaki. I think his break-even's 22, I think. So you can definitely look. He won't come out and get 80. So, maybe you're looking at a 40, 50, and if he does that this week, he might rise by 20K, but it's not the end of the world at his price. So worth having another look there before you jump on a guy that might be kind of pegged to be a 50-minute edge. Targeting Walsh round 6, yes. So Walsh and KP are probably the two that have the best draw from round 6 onwards. Shout out to Aman who did those stats. So go and check out Aman Talks NRL Supercoach. He did a nice graphic talking about the strength of schedule for the fullbacks leading into Origin. So check that out. But yes, Walsh or Kalen Ponga will be the two targets, I think, around round 6, round 7. There's another fullback we'll talk about soon. Mr. Callio is the next one. Hey, how would you bring in Talakai? Which centre wing is first on the chopping block for you and should be enough at centre wing? Okay, first on this. How would you bring in Talakai? You wouldn't. Not in my opinion anyway. I think Talakai is just safe. Yes, he's got the attacking upside. He'll score tries for sure. But I think we're maybe looking for an alternative to Ronaldo Mulatalo, which I don't know whether you need to look for an alternative. The next 2 games look pretty good. He's got the Tigers obviously this week, and he's got the Raiders next week. So when's the bubble going to burst for the Raiders? Well, Ricky Stewart's just bought in bloody Elliot Whitehead to replace his best second row forward. So if that's selling you anything, they're relying on Whitehead on the edge, who is just kind of past it for me. I think there's definitely way better options. I think this is a boneheaded move unless he makes a switch really late. Talakai's price, if I quickly search it, is 569K, which is still fine. He averages 78 this year. I'm definitely not saying he's not a buy. He's got a break even of 5, so he's going to make you money this week. I personally think if you're going to get Talakai in, you're not getting rid of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who's well owned. You're not getting rid of Taylor May, who's well owned, and you've got to fork out 300K from any other viable option, which is now the challenge. So if I search centre wing very quickly, and we look through the options here that are well owned by coaches, you've got Burbo, no one's trading. Ethan Strange, obviously no one's trading. Taylor May, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Now, they're not going anywhere. Tane Tuapiki, he has got another good couple of rounds of cash gen in him, so we're holding him. Jamin Salmon is the viable option if you've got 250K to go up to Sifa Talakai. That's a lock for me. And obviously Jacob Gagai's basement price. So it's kind of tricky. No, there's no other really good options there unless you've got a Greg Marju, who is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with that hand or wrist issue that he's just had surgery on. So I would probably go, if you've got Marju, you can go down to Talakai, or you might have to find cash to go up from one of those kind of mid-tier 300K guys as well. So, Jamin Salmon's a guy that springs to mind straight away. 317K, you could go up to any of these guns, I think, and feel pretty good about it. Or what you could do is if you've got a Helam Lukey and you've got a Burbo potentially on in the centre wing, or you've got Salmon in the centre wing, you could switch via Jules and bring in Talakai for Helam Lukey. So that's another option. Or Sua Wong as well. So that both of those guys are going to be out. So Sua Wong's been dropped, obviously, and Helam Lukey's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. So that could be maybe an easier little pathway to get to him. Helam Lukey up to Talakai. All right, Luro wants to know, would you hold Ponga for 2 more rounds and take the cash hit, or would you move to Pappenhausen even though he has the bye next week? And for a little bit of an extra addition, he doesn't love Trell Mitchell. So that would have been my answer. Go to Trell Mitt. Would I hold Ponga for 2 more rounds and take the cash hit? Look, I'm not against it at all. It's not like Ponga has looked terrible. The Knights have. The Knights haven't got him any good ball. Tyson Gamble is literally the crux of this team. He is the Achilles heel of why this team can't get going. And I don't like throwing just shade on one player and putting one player at fault, but the amount of bad ball that Ponga has got is just atrocious. And I know Jackson Hastings hasn't been fantastic either, but my I guess my preference, I'd love to see Jackson Hastings and Jack Cogger line up at 6 and 7. And I feel like Ponga would get much better ball then. I don't think, I don't think he's being helped at the moment. But yeah, hold Ponga. If you don't feel good about going to Trollmere, obviously with Pappenhausen, I don't think Pappy's a buy this week. I think with the buy next week and a lot of people having potentially Harry Grant, Joe Chan, you're going to be playing with 22 players next week and you're going to be relying on a lot of these kind of cheapies to field next week, which isn't ideal. So I wait on Pappy. My move this week is to go from Ponga to Trell, and I'll talk about why soon. But I think if you don't like any of the other options, Tedesco's his draw is so up and down. So it's very hard to know how that's going to go for him. We know he's decent, but if it's not Trell, maybe just hold Ponga. We got him because his draw still is the best out of all the fullbacks for the first 10 rounds. So we can't forget that. I think that's very important to note, that Ponga's draw is still very good. And if the Knights come good at some point, which we know they probably will eventually, once they sort out their kinks, Marju is out, which we'll talk about soon. But I'm not against holding Ponga. He's still got the goal kicking. Take the goal kicking off him, we're having a very different conversation. Next one, Brent is asking, is it time to move Carz on? It means waiting a week to trade Lukey. Now, I'm not against waiting a week to trade Lukey because if you don't have any Dolphins in your team currently, you're going to need someone as a loop option, and Lukey could be that. Maybe you have a Sua Wong or maybe you have Gagai or whatever, but the issue becomes Gagai plays on the Friday night. Lukey would have played on the Saturday at 5:30, so it gives you a little bit more time for those of you that want to use a VC in those first 4 rounds to see whether you need to captain your loop option. So, but to answer your question, I think you need to hold tight on Carz. I don't necessarily think he's been terrible. It's not like his base numbers have been awful. I think he is still a viable option. It's just the hard part is the Bulldogs have started slow this year and everybody was predicting them to be amazing. I mean, we look at Jacob Carz and he's still basing 38 with 16 evade stats per game in the first 2 games. He's had 14 and 17 in evade first 2 games. His base is down. That is the only issue with Jacob Carz. He is on the wing, obviously, but we were thinking he's going to be on the wing now. He's shifted to centre, and there's a bit going on there with obviously Blake Wilson in this team too. So I love him less at centre. So if we see him on the wing again in the near future, I think he's a great hold. But yeah, just being at centre isn't ideal. So if it means that you can free up some cash to make another move elsewhere, I'm fine with it. But yeah, obviously some things to consider there with Jacob Carz. The next one from Brent, is Grant down to Lussick a viable option now that he has 80 minutes? 436k price difference between Grant and Lussick. And obviously Grant is on the bye next week as well. It's very tempting. And absolutely it's tempting. I can imagine why it would be. It's not something I'm doing because I've got Levi there. So it kind of makes sense for me to just go with Levi to Lussick and then play Lussick next week when Grant's on the bye. So that is my tactic. I think Grant's a hold. I don't necessarily think Grant has been bad at all by any means. Obviously, with Hughes and Munster out, it does kind of bring up some question marks as to whether Harry Grant's going to be helped or hindered by that too. Potentially, it could actually really help Harry Grant having the ball in his hands a little bit more and playing more of a playmaker role. So we might see those create stats go up. And there's one thing to note here, that this year so far, Harry Grant's base has been the same. Well, it's 1 point less than it was in 2023. So he's still basing 44, which is good. His evade stats are down by 6. So he averaged 17 evade stats per game last year. It's down to 11 in the first 2 games. But this is the big kicker for me. He averaged 7 points in scoring, so kind of like a try or a try assist every second game, basically. And he has not had a scoring stat yet this year. No try assists or no tries at all. So definitely worth thinking there, but create is down. So his try assists, his try contributions, his line break assists, that is the big kicker for me. He is averaging 3 points in create per game. Last year, he averaged 12, 13, I think it was. So for me, I think as soon as we get the ball in Harry's hands a little bit more and he takes on a bit of the playmaking duties, I think he is definitely much more on track to be where we expect him to be. And he hasn't been terrible. He's got 49 and 61. I mean, he hasn't gone and got 230s. Yeah, if he got 230s, the question marks would start to kick up. But for me, I haven't even thought about moving him on. I understand the logic behind the Lussick trade. And if you do have the luxury of having a Reece Robson or double gun hooker and you've got Appy and Grant or something like that, or you've got Robson and Grant, Yeah, absolutely. I would probably consider it then, and you just lean on your other primo hooker. But for me, if Harry Grant was your only premium hooker and you were running a Levi or you still got a Lussick or something like that, I think he's a hold. I think I would probably rather trade Ponga at this point in time than Harry Grant personally. The next one, Brent, how does Marju out affect Ponga? Now, this is an interesting one. Second last question, by the way. This is an interesting one for me. I feel like Ponga is probably a little bit disadvantaged without Marju out. We spoke about it on the Insight NRL show, the Tin List Tuesday episode on Tuesday, and Josh and I were going through the fact that, when you take out such a potent option on the wing, it definitely then now creates less threat on that edge. Now, you've got to mark up on Marju. You can't let the guy be free. So there's a lot of attention that goes to Marju because he's such a big body. He's really hard to tackle. So it does free up Ponga then. He's not going to get so much attention. He'll get tons, of course, but he's still the best player in this team. But in saying that, when they're worried, who are you more worried about, Nanare Tuala or Greg Marju? I know the answer. We all do. So I feel like maybe Ponga's going to get a lot more attention this week. Especially because Craig Bellamy always puts a lot of attention on the main player in each team. You'll notice that he takes him out of the game completely, the main playmaker or the main guy at the back. So I reckon he's probably going to get swarmed this week, which is probably not great for line breaks and scoring points for Ponga, which is probably another factor as to why I think I'm going to be moving him on this week. I'll be going to Trell. And the reason for me going to Trell, and I'll kind of talk about it now, is the fact that when he has his bye in round 7, he's got a nice draw in the lead up. Yeah, he's got the Bulldogs next week as well, which I think he averages 120 over his last 3 games. So that's a really nice VC or C option next week for Trell. But I also am going to Trell purely because I think there's a narrative there that he steps up and wants to prove the haters wrong. There's a lot of talk about him, the swearing in the media and all that kind of shit. People like to shit on Latrell Mitchell. They love to put pressure on him, especially the media. And I think he loves and thrives on that competition. So I think Trell is a good option this week. He scored 80 by doing next to fuck all for 75 minutes last week. So, it only takes 1 or 2 attacking stats and he's in the game. But hopefully that reiterates my point on Marju affecting Ponga. I think that Ponga is going to get much more attention this week and can't necessarily be good for him, for sure. Last question, Agent Cheese. With Ricky Stewart messing Hosking around, which hurts all of us, doesn't it? We all thought we were going to get a nice little 100K weekly price rise out of Zach Hosking, and we might still. But the rest of the question is, with Ricky Stewart messing Hosking around, could Teague Wilton be an option to set and forget? He's got the easiest draw, he doesn't play Origin, and he's locked into 80 minutes. I don't hate it. Teague Wilton, for me, he's averaging 78 at the moment. He's coming off 110 with a try last week. He's a 610K as well with a break-even of 18. So, I don't mind it. The only issue for me is that he scored 46 in round 1. So are we overreacting to a game against the Bulldogs where he scored a try, had a try assist and a try contribution? He's not going to have that every week. That's 30, 29, 33 points in attack. Then he had 10 in tackle breaks, 4 in offloads, and he also had a line break and a line break assist. So we're looking at nearly 50 points in attacking stats last week. So if you remove that, he would have scored 60, which is still fine. But they do have a nice draw as well. That's probably the kicker for me. They're playing the Tigers this week, into the Raiders next week. Souths, who have been out of form in round 6. They've got the bye in round 5, though. So you've got to cop that on the chin, I think, and especially if you've got another couple of Sharks in your team, or you definitely probably have Nico. You are kind of copping a hit there, but the next 2 matchups are beautiful. And then the round 8, round 9, Canberra into Dragons is also very nice. So I'm not saying he's not an option. I think he is a quality player, and he's definitely locked into 80 minutes with a nice draw. I just think that I would rather pay up for Akuila Uate, honestly. I just feel like there's a lot more danger there on that right edge outside DCE. I know Luke Brooks has looked good on the left, and I know that obviously Turbo sweeping predominantly left probably plays a factor into that. But for me, I would probably look elsewhere than Wilton, or I'd probably try and free up a little bit of cash with one of these guys, even Kai Pearce-Paul. There haven't been any questions in the Unlimited chat today about Kai Pearce-Paul, but he is a very close watch for me this week. And if we do see Dylan Lucas come back onto the extended or come back onto the bench, he hasn't been named in Cup. So if he comes back onto the bench there is a risk there that KPP probably doesn't get the minutes we would like him to get. So, yeah, he is a watch. Fuiaki next week is also a watch. Or you have another option there to maybe play it out a week and just sit Lukey on the bench and use him as a loop. I'm assuming this is why we're looking for that 2RF option for the Lukey replacement or for the Wilton replacement. So, hopefully that answers your question. I like Teague Wilton, but I would probably look elsewhere for the short term anyway. Guys, that brings us to the end of the show. We've covered all the questions. If you would like your questions answered, of course, we would love you to become an Insight Unlimited member. It only costs $25 to get started. And I've left the banner on the screen. Don't mind me. $25 to become an Insight Unlimited member. All you need to do is join the Discord or hop in my DMs or Josh's or Matrix's, and we'll sort you out, look after you, and then you get answered. Yeah, all your questions answered in the Discord. We do this podcast for you every single week, talking to you about what you're answering your questions. And of course, you get inside information, late mail on teams, you get injury analysis as well, and a ton of other stuff in the Discord too. So get involved in that, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully plenty of green arrows this week ahead of round 3. Get your cheapies right this week and make your cash and get your team set up to make a climb in the rankings. We will see you Sunday night for the weekly wrap-up. Matrix will be back on deck as well, so it'll be all three of us. Looking forward to chatting with you then. Good luck this week. Catch you later.